we're going to now, we're staying in Massachusetts. So if you're tired of me mispronouncing that, which again, I think I might actually be pronouncing that right. There's a lot of T's in it, but I think they're all silent. So anyways, now we're going to a place called Dogtown. Dogtown, Massachusetts, was founded in 1693. A lot of weird coincidences, a lot of weird events. The early settlers in the area reported that there was a tribe of Indians called the Agawam Indians. And when the early settlers got there, they noticed there was a lot of wolf activity in the area. And the story that they heard from the natives was that the Agawam Indians' ancestors, they had the ability to gain, their heads would turn into the heads of dogs. And you're like, okay, shamanistic and stuff like that. But the Indians also said, there is a herb in this area that anyone can take, turn you into a dog, shapeshift into a dog. You didn't have to have any sort of high-level ritual training or anything like that. You could turn into a dog if you could find this herb. Early settlers probably like, whatever, dude. See you next Thanksgiving. The reason why the town's called Dogtown has a couple different origins. One is that there was a bunch of dogs in the area, like wolves in the area. Another possibility, which this was another fact, so these are all facts, they just don't know which one contributed to the name of Dogtown, was during the American Revolution. So the town was founded in 1693. It was actually very well situated because it was close to water. It was close to the water, so you could do fishing and stuff like that. But it was protected, it had natural barriers to protect it from both pirates, which was a big issue back then, and native raiding groups. So they kind of had protection from both, sea adversaries and land adversaries. It wasn't the best for farming, but they were able to do other things there. So it was a bustling town at a certain point. It was not like a Boston-level town, but it had a population. During the American Revolution, when all the men left to fight the British, women started taking dogs on in disproportionate amounts. So it got to the point where pretty much every woman had a pet dog. Now, that sounds creepy too, and it kind of makes you think like this area has some sort of like canine presence. But it was almost like all the women in town, to have company, don't be dirty, you're going to be anyways, but to have company, they got dogs. But what happened was American Revolution, spoiler alert, America won, and the town was still there. But during the War of 1812, when those dastardly British showed back up, I think it was against the British, I might have been the French, I'm not for sure, but the War of 1812, that particular town, Dogtown, was now susceptible to naval bombardment. And people were like, we can go to a place that has, better economic factors, better farmland and stuff like that. And as the townspeople left, you basically had three groups of people that stayed in the town. You had widows, you had independent women, which back then was basically code word for witch, and vagrants moved into towns because they had all these houses and no one living in them. You got a lot of accusations of witchcraft in the area at this time. Now, and this is past, we're in the War of 1812, so this is past the Salem witch trials. This isn't during witch mania. But this town had such a unique, creepy vibe that it got the reputation of housing multiple witches. One of them was known as Tammy Younger, and her nickname was Queen of the Witches. And she would sit out on her patio, and when people had to travel by her house to get, they're going from point A to point B, and Dogtown's in the middle, as they drove by her, she would curse their oxen, and the oxen would stop, and she'd be like, give me some potatoes. And then she would let them on through. Now, that obviously could just be legend, but the person apparently did exist, and people would give her food. Now, whether or not she had the magical power to stop beasts of burden, I'm not for sure. I mean, obviously, logically, probably not. But for whatever reason, people were stopping and giving her food. Maybe she's a prostitute. I don't know now that I think about it. But there were stories of, in the woods, like booming sounds. You'd see like flickers of light in the forest. Sometimes figures would just be standing there by the tree line. It was not a fun place to be. Imagine like Blair Witch USA. It was not a cool place to be. A practical problem, so whether or not Tammy Younger was actually a practicing witch, or she may have been practicing witch, but whether or not she actually had any sort of powers, that's up to debate, whether you're skeptic or believer or things like that. And I always kind of fall in the middle. What's not mystical, what's not, like, woo, might be spooky is, well, it is spooky, but not paranormal, is the third theory of how Dogtown got its name. Now, some people believe that the town didn't get the official name of Dogtown, or it didn't really get known as Dogtown until far later in its life cycle. Because after the American Revolution, after where everyone got their dogs, after War of 1812, where people were leaving, people just left their dogs there. And the dogs went feral. You just had wild packs of dogs roaming the town, attacking people. And they think that that's the reason how it really got the name of Dogtown, is that people from out of town would be like, I'm not going there. There's a bunch of dogs running around, and if we're lucky, they won't eat our oxen while Tammy Younger has them frozen in fear. In 1845, the last building was razed. They're like, get rid of the town, it's gone. And to make things even creepier, this town, apparently dog-headed Indians are running around it. People have an incredible fascination with dogs. There's a witch. There's a bunch of dogs, crazy dogs running around. You knock down all the buildings, and a spooky forest appears instead. Not just flat land. So you have all these trees, the forest not the next day, but I mean, the forest reappears. And Dogtown, when they tore all the buildings down, they left the basements, because what are you going to do? The cellars and stuff like that. So you can literally be walking through this forest and fall into a spooky basement from the 1600s, and no one will ever know you're there. And it's probably full of feral dogs. A lot of the cellars now have been marked with rocks, but not all of them. There's still quite a chance as you're walking through this spooky forest that you're going to fall into a cellar. A spooky, spooky cellar. So now we're in the present day. Well, not the present day. We're in 1984. Present for me when I was a kid. Now, another boy just got his brains bashed out in Spider Gates, sorry. I've already forgotten what that place is called. This is 1984. Return of the Jedi just came out a year earlier. Transformers, I think, came out this year. I was quite chubby. While I was in California watching Transformers, what was going on in this abandoned city / spooky forest of Dogtown. 1984, March 17th, there was a report of a giant animal. I don't know why I made that noise. I guess I should have went. Anyway, whatever. It sounded like a circus song. There's a giant monster. There's a giant animal that's roaming the cliffs near Dogtown on March 17th. March 24th, a deer, its carcass is found ripped in half. Not eaten, but torn in half. That night, 2 people in the area say that they saw a giant dog monster roaming through the forest. So those are all reports that they had seen this monster moving through the forest. Actual provable news event, on June 24th of that same year, so just, what is that, March, April, May, June, 4 months later, Ann Natty was an avid jogger, and she loved the Dogtown area. She just thought it was a beautiful forest. And there's a man out there named Peter Hodgkins, and he ended up telling the police, so you can tell where this story's going. I didn't plan it. I didn't really think about it. And, I just saw her, and I had an overwhelming desire to murder her. So in these dark forests full of so many legends, Peter Hodgkins comes up behind her with a rock, smashes her head in, just completely out of the blue. He just saw her and knew that he needed to kill her. Is there a connection between that murder and the monster that was roaming the woods? Was this town infested by some sort of spirit animal? Is there really a plant in that area that if you ate it, you could become a shapeshifter? Was it possible that Peter Hodgkins was the beast that was sighted just 5 months earlier? No memory of it, just a wild, murderous beast. This area definitely seems sinister. Could be completely made up. All the information that I've presented to you, it could just be myths and legends that are sewn together to tell a compelling story. On a scale of 1 to 10, out of all the places, I would put Dogtown at a 10. This place sounds absolutely fascinating to me. Dogtown, I think, has a dark secret. And the only way you'll ever be able to really prove it, right or wrong, is to walk around it 10 times. No. The only way you're ever able to really, prove it would be to go out there. But if Peter Hodgkins wasn't the beast, where's the beast now? That was a clip from our daily podcast, Dead Rabbit Radio. Dead Rabbit Radio is available anywhere that you listen to podcasts. It's daily paranormal, conspiracy, and true crime news. If you want to hear the full episode that this clip came from, check the link below. Please like and subscribe. And hit that little bell, too. That does some magical stuff. Thanks, guys.